What's up, everybody? It's Dan, Binder Boneyard, coming at you from the shop. It is a beautiful sunny day here in Central Oregon. If you were watching this on YouTube, you wouldn't know because we're not pointed towards a window. But it is a nice change from the terrible, gloomy rain and the snow we've had the last couple of weeks. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate the Patreon supporters, you guys that are donating, and the subscriptions on social media is always appreciated. If you want to subscribe on Instagram, it's only $1.99 a month. That's if I get enough of you guys, it actually adds up to something. So I appreciate the donations, and all of that. Patreon, you can donate whatever you want. So $1 to $1,000, whatever. But anyway, I don't do it for the money, obviously. If I was in this for the money, I would be working on Broncos or something else that carried a lot of value. But I do the internationals because I love them. And so anyway, you may notice there was not a podcast last week. We were on the road. We were doing a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to recap the week and some of the stuff that happened and some exciting news and things like that. So we had a scout in the shop for a long time. We were doing quite a bit of work too. And some of these scouts, they turn into kind of, I don't want to say snowballs, but sometimes things pop up that you aren't always expecting or ready for, or even, thought would happen. So Pat is the customer's name. Pat Scout, we've worked on for years. We usually do, a couple thousand, 5,000 or something at a time. And then he drives it for a year, makes a new list, and then it comes back, and then we do it again. And, we just kind of have been chipping away at the Scout for a long time, making it just as good as it could be. And so this time it was in for lift kit and some tuning. While it was here, ended up needing brake work. And then there was a problem with the fuel injection. It was running a Hamilton EFI system, which is hard to work on unless you've got a laptop, from the 90s. I know that there's ways to make new laptops work with that old software, but I don't have time for that. So anyway, the troubleshooting Hamilton systems is a little bit more difficult, but ended up needing some relays, got her running good again, and things like that. So anyway, Pat lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and so he's very busy, and rather than him fly in and drive it home, we had to head to California to finish up a job that I'll talk about later. So I just said, you know what, it's only 5 hours from where we're at in California to where you are in Phoenix. We'll just deliver it. So worked out a deal to deliver Pat Scout to him in Phoenix. And, while we were down there, we're going to do some other things. So road trips like that mean getting the black truck ready to go, going through the trailer, making sure, tires, bearings, all that were good. My trailer that we used for this run is a 28-foot enclosed trailer, 14,000 pound axles, or 14,000 pound capacity, 7,000 pound axles. And so it's a great trailer, awesome, but it hits the wind hard. It is a V nose, but it's still, 28 foot a trailer with a V nose, the wind just beats it up. And so The weather heading down was supposed to be questionable. I don't know if anybody's been watching the weather out here on the West Coast, but it's been awful, and especially in California. So we get going, and sure enough, right out of town here, we run into some rain and then the wind. And I was pushing a headwind, and generally the black truck doesn't have any trouble, with that, especially with just a Scout in the trailer. I mean, the Scout weighs 5,500 pounds. The trailer weighs 4,000 pounds. So I'm moving, 9,000 pounds down the road. The truck weighs 8,000 pounds. So I'm, 17,000 or something. I think that's right. Anyway, not terrible. But I had a hell of a time maintaining 65. Well, coming down just above Weed, California, way up on the top of the pass there's a semi truck that had actually blown over. It was so windy that it blew this empty 40-foot or 53-foot container truck over. So that lets you know how much wind we were pushing against. Coming down through Redding, it rained the whole time. Finally cleared up down farther south. We had plans to stay in Barstow. And then from Barstow, we were actually going to go out to spectate a desert race that I go to every year called King of the Hammers. And King of the Hammers is a Ultra 4 desert race. It started out as rock crawlers who could do the most rock trails and get back to camp the fastest. And in the old days, rock buggies did not go fast in the desert, and vice versa. Fast desert cars did not do well on the rocks. So, this sport was born, and now Ultra 4 cars are like the craziest thing. They're 120 in the desert, capable of crawling the gnarliest rock trails. Just cutting edge of performance, whatever. Because that's where my history is. I got into Scouts 25 years ago now, but off-road racing is kind of where I turned, just sort of a roundabout sort of way. Through the Scout community, I met a guy that had an off-road shop, and he inspired me a lot to kind of learn this stuff. And I ended up going to work for him part-time because I was working at an industrial fab shop. I quit my job at a pressure washing company and went to work at this industrial fab shop. Took a $10 an hour pay cut to go work at this fab place because I wanted to learn fabrication. I wanted to learn how to do this, and the only way I was going to do it was if I got a job doing it, because I couldn't afford to go to school to do it, and that didn't make sense to me anyways, because what I found is that when guys go to school for something, they get out of that program and they still need a bunch of training, and they don't know the ins and outs of it, and they're still the new guy. So I just I wanted to shortcut that and just got a job in fabrication. And it was a heavy shop, industrial fab, building conveyors for rock quarries and stuff like that. So not off-road fab, but still I learned, how to weld, use a cutting torch, all that stuff. Because I didn't have any of those skills. I shouldn't say any, but, very, very bare minimum knowledge from what I learned in high school shop class. And rest in peace, Mr. Robbins. So I just, I needed something else. So anyways, went to work industrial fab. My buddy Luke had a off-road shop. And so I was working there part-time, where I got exposed to pre-runners and race cars, and this was a couple years before the documentary Dust to Glory came out. So it was kind of unknown. I mean, we're in Oregon, so there's not a ton of, desert cars up here. And so, but then Dust to Glory came out in 2006, and it like exploded up here. All these rich guys wanted pre-runners built. There were guys wanting buggies, that kind of thing. So that's how I got into that. And then that translated over into the Scouts I was building. My roll cages got infinitely better. Suspension setups I figured out, steering using way better parts. We were using like tractor heims and stuff from the farm supply store. And suddenly, here's these high-end spherical rod ends from Fragola, or FK is the brand, but the parent company is called Fragola. Anyway, I'm like exposed to all this stuff. And the first time I saw an LS engine in like another application, and it was making 800 horse and whatever, it really expanded my personal growth in this industry. So anyway, long story even longer. That's why I'm still into it. Like, I go to the King of the Hammers every year. I follow a ton of race shops on Instagram. Like, I'm still friends with people in the industry. And so, it's a big part of my life, and it will always be a part of my life. So anyway, we go to King of the Hammers. But our plan was, when we woke up on Thursday morning, the morning we were going to go, it was pouring. And they were supposed to have a ton of rain out there, and rain in the desert is miserable. So we decided that Thursday we would deliver the Scout and go to the Hammers on Friday, because the weather was supposed to turn. So we head for Phoenix, and it wasn't too bad of a drive. We were definitely, the storm was pushing us. Every time I looked in the mirror, the clouds were darker and closer. We get to Phoenix, meet with Pat, unload, and then turn around to start heading back to Barstow, because we had our hotel for 2 nights. And that's when we hit the rain. And it rained, like downpour, sideways rain. And the desert is not, the roads and the highway system is not set up for that kind of weather. So there was gravel and debris in the roads, tumbleweeds the size of small cars that we were just crashing through. That was the most stressful part, was all the debris I was hitting on the road, because it's dark. You can't see. There's no lines on the road because it's all been worn off from the sun and traffic, and they just don't paint the roads as often down there. So you'd hit these semi-truck ruts on the highway, and then there would be a half inch of gravel on the bottom of them. And, I picked up a few more dings in my windshield from passing cars and semi-trucks, and, the wind, it was rough. It took us like 5.5 hours to go from Barstow to Phoenix, but it took almost 7 hours to go from Phoenix back to Barstow. The weather was just terrible. But anyway, the trailer was empty, so at least, the wind was really beating it up. Like, it pushed me around quite a bit, because now I didn't have 5,000 pounds of ballast in it to keep it down on the road. So anyway, we did make it back to Barstow, finally get to our hotel. We like to stay at the Quality Inn. This is not sponsored, but there's a Quality Inn at Barstow, kind of a shady part of town, but there's a great restaurant attached to it. And so we get good breakfast there when we stay there. And then there's a big parking lot, so lots of room for truck and trailer. The security there is actually pretty good. There's a fair amount of homeless people that mill around, but when the doors are locked and you keep your stuff out of sight, it's not as bad. That, and I drive old hunks of crap, so I don't think they're that tempting for some of the less savory folks. So head out to King of the Hammers, which kind of sucked because I had to drag the truck and trailer out there. But saw some old friends, saw some great racing, hit some vendor booths, bought some cheap stuff that was on sale. got my merch like I do every year. Like I said, saw some friends. It was a great day. We were there the whole day. It was the stock class and the EMC class racing, so that was fun to see. Josie had never been, so she was kind of taking it all in and asking questions and trying to figure it out, because it's like King of the Hammers is a cross between like Burning Man and the Super Bowl and Mad Max. Like, it's just like crazy trucks, tons of people, everyone's excited, like, just crazy. But the weather was nice. It was sunny. It was only like 55 and kind of windy, so that made it a little cold. But overall, it was a good trip out there. So then from there, we went to Hesperia, California, and we were finishing up a parts haul from Hesperia. If you've been following on any of the socials, we've been bringing stuff back from there for like a year. I bought 3 semi-truck trailers full of vintage auto parts and tools and stuff like that. This old guy had been collecting for like 65 years, had several different businesses, had a wrecking yard at one time, bought old dealerships. So there were like piles, boxes and boxes and shelves full of NOS Ford parts and NOS Mopar and Dodge parts, and of course a plethora of NOS IH parts. And if you follow our store, our website, thebinderboneyard.com, you'll see we have tons of NOS stuff up there. And so this last trip was the final clean out. We brought back all the shelves and garbage we couldn't get rid of down there, and the last of the tools and just little bits like that that we needed to clean up so we could be out of these old folks' hair. Because the one old guy is he's getting he's deteriorating, and it was only a matter of time before they wouldn't be able to do anything with this stuff, and we needed to get it out of there before he got too bad. The wife is still pretty spry, but she didn't want to deal with this stuff either. And that goes back to some of my podcasts from a few months ago, the audio podcasts, because I was doing this before the video ones, where I talk about having a plan. Just don't leave this stuff for your relatives to deal with. So anyway, this lady was trying to take care of it before the crap hit the fan, and he's on his way quickly, so which is unfortunate. But anyway, so that took a good part of I guess it would be Saturday. We did that on Saturday. Oh, I also delivered an axle that I built for a guy in San Bernardino. So before we loaded up Hesperia, I dropped the trailer at the old folks' place, and then we just took the truck empty down to San Bernardino, dropped the axle off with the guy. He was stoked to have it. And I met up with another enthusiast where I bought a rooftop tent that they had for sale. I'm not a rooftop tent kind of guy, but I'm building this chase truck for the desert race program, and I feel like a rooftop tent would be very beneficial in Mexico when you don't want to sleep on the ground with all the cockroaches and snakes. So that I picked up the rooftop tent, back to Hesperia, loaded up all this stuff. This was Saturday. Got back to our hotel in Hesperia, got a good night's sleep, jammed out Sunday morning early to come home, and fought the weather all the way back. Again, rain and wind, tumbleweeds in the highway again, debris everywhere. Pretty much made good time. Of course, had to stop for InNOut. I don't care what you say about your local fast food chain. Josie and I like to go to InNOut when we're in California. I do want to try Fatburger sometime, but every time I'm down there, I'm driving, a big truck with a trailer or something, so it's hard to get to the Fatburgers. But I would like to try a fat burger sometime. But no, go to InNOut and then start making our way up. We ran into a bunch of snow at Weed, California, and all the way to Klamath Falls. Very sketchy, questionable, hard to drive. I did not have tire chains. The trailer, I for some reason I left all that stuff at home. I didn't even think about it because in my head I'm like, oh, it's California, it'll be fine, sunny, dry, whatever. Well, no, I needed chains and I didn't have them. So we did make it, but Josie was very nervous, and she was pretty scared a couple of times. It got a little bit hairy, but we made it home. We ended up adding over 4 hours to the travel time because when we left the hotel, the GPS said it would take us like 10 hours, and our overall travel time ended up being 14 hours. So definitely, and then there's some of that you pick up, like, you stop for fuel. Well, that takes 15 minutes, and, so that adds time. And sometimes you can make it back up on the highway. And then usually I do, but, the weather and everything, and our stop at InNOut took half an hour. So it compounded it. But, we didn't walk in the door until 1:30 in the morning on Monday morning. So it was a hell of a trip. But we made it, and I'm happy to be done with the Hesperia haul. I'm glad Pat has a Scout. He's super happy with it. Runs great. I was stoked to see my friends. One thing that I overlooked earlier, on our way down, I stopped by my buddy Camo's house and picked up an English wheel and a shrinker stretcher setup for doing sheet metal work. I've had an English wheel for years, but it's not a great one. But I've never had a shrinker stretcher, and I've always wanted one, and I didn't want to buy the Harbor Freight one, and that kind of thing. So when Eric put his up for sale, I jumped on them. They were very reasonably priced, probably underpriced. He sold them to me very cheap, and I'm extremely grateful for, because he kind of knew what I was doing. He knows that, I'm a struggling small business, and he is, not. So he helped me out with the deal on these things, and it's a very nice wheel. All the dies, tons of adjustability, very sturdy. And then the shrinker stretcher is a fairly name brand version with replaceable jaws. So I need to either fabricate a stand or purchase a stand for them. But other than that, I'm super stoked to have these tools. It just helps us make the best possible product, because we do a lot of the sheet metal repairs ourselves in house. So that means having to manufacture patch panels and pieces. So that's super great. I'm happy to have that. There's a few more tools I want to add to the arsenal, but for the most part, that really, it helps a lot. So anyway, yeah. So that was a big. I'm happy to have that stuff, but overall the trip was good. The black truck ran amazing, like always. I do have a transmission fluid leak that I need to take care of, because I lost about a quart of fluid overall in the course of the trip. So that needs to get handled sooner than later. But yeah, everything's great. No flats, no wheel problems. I don't know what our mileage was, because I don't track it anymore, because it's just not, I don't care. Like, it's 10, pulling a load like that, it's between 10 and 12. It was probably, it was probably still around 10 with the wind. And I gauge that just on our fuel stops, because I have like a set distance I go. Like, we stop at the same truck stops every time, and I know, pretty much what it takes. So there was nothing that jumped out at me as like, oh my gosh, we used way too much fuel, or we're getting terrible mileage or something. So truck did great. Josie's awesome. We had the dog, old Rhodey. She's a great traveler. Love her, and it's nice to have her with us. It does cost us a little more when we stay in the hotels, but it's you know, it's a deterrent also when people want to poke around the trucks. We leave her in the truck when we go into the restaurants, or we leave her in the truck when we're running an errand. And it does, I've seen it firsthand where people will approach the truck and then see the dog and walk away. So because in California people are kind of brazen, and it's probably like that in other big cities too. I haven't noticed it as much. I did notice it in Memphis and West Memphis. People like to walk up to the truck just because, I don't know, maybe they think it's easy to get into, but the dog definitely deters people. So so it was a good trip. And I will be putting up videos of of the trip and of King of the Hammers and things like that as I edit them out. But I have to do that stuff at night when I'm not actually working. So anyway, I guess we'll hang her up there. Appreciate everybody. Thank you for listening. Again, thanks for all the subscriptions and the likes. Please tell your friends. Please share social media. Like word of mouth goes a long, long ways. I don't charge for any of this stuff. I just ask for some help. And, if you don't want to actually give me money, just telling people about it goes a long ways. So, I appreciate it. I value you guys. And thanks everybody for listening. And until next time, I'm Dan from Binder Boneyard.